or sulfur dioxide, how do they affect living organisms?
Yeah,
Yes, if you can hear me.
yes, Mwalimu, those two gases they lead to the acidic rain, which basically affect the living organisms.
So you've mentioned acidic rain, which is very correct. So acidic rain affect, now to be very, very specific, acidic rain
also
can
sulfur dioxide causes the infrared light to be confined within the atmosphere. So the Earth's temperature rises, and this is called the greenhouse effect.
Yes, that is correct. So the gases can lead to what we call the greenhouse effect, and that is a condition whereby the temperatures of the lower atmosphere seems to rise, keeps on rising. Now, why does it rise? Because these gaseous particles absorb heat. They absorb that temperature being emitted by the sun, and so that keeps the atmosphere much warmer than usual. And another effect that Musin has mentioned is the formation of acid rain. When carbon dioxide or sulfur dioxide, when rain falls, these gases dissolve in the rainwater. So when they dissolve in the rainwater, they form carbon dioxide form carbonic acid. This acid finds its way in the soil, and then it can alter the soil pH. And if the soil pH is altered, that is going to affect the plant growth. That is very, very correct, Musin. Now, the one which is remaining is carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide is also a serious pollutant. And we said last time that carbon dioxide is actually a respiratory poison. If large quantities of this gas is in the atmosphere, then you happen to inhale such huge quantities of this gas, then it can make you suffocate. And actually, under serious circumstances, it can lead to death. That is carbon dioxide. Sulfur dioxide, the same. It also causes acid rain. That is very, very, very correct. Now, we also mentioned other pollutants. We mentioned noise. Remember, we said that noise affects our ears. Noise can cause stress to certain animals. Then we also talked about aerosols, and these aerosols are particles from chemicals. When we spray, aerosols also include perfume chemicals. Particles and being suspended in the air, and these are now called aerosols, and these cause pollution to the air. So when you inhale such particles, then you can have respiratory problems, respiratory diseases due to the inhalation of such kind of particles. We also talked about dust, vumbi, a lot of dust in the air. How is it a pollutant? This can affect even plants. So the stomata of the plants will get blocked by the dust. Once the stomata is blocked, now you know the effect of that. The plant will not be able to carry out a gaseous exchange, transpiration will also be affected. Yes. Yeah, we also mentioned smoke as a pollutant, and smoke can reduce visibility. If you are driving, for example, then there is a lot of smoke, then you can't see well. Yeah, then we mentioned the various ways we can use control air pollution, including no, people can be aware. Then we also talked about use of biological control, and remember I said the last time that biological control of pests, that is, involves using another organism to destroy the pest. So if you know very well that if you use insecticides, we are going to have a lot of aerosols in the air. A lot of these particles are going to be suspended in the air. So it is better to avoid the chemical, the insecticide or the pesticide, but use a biological means, use a biological method of pest control. Simply look for another organism that can destroy that pest. The example we gave is the use of cats to destroy the rats. You can also use certain birds to destroy certain insects. Certain birds to destroy ticks, to eat ticks, for example, from cattle. So instead of spraying, you just use the birds to eat the ticks. That is biological means of controlling pests. And so it is important in preventing air pollution. Then we also talked about use of renewable sources of energy, and that includes use of electricity and electricity and also even biogas. These are clean energy because we know that use of fuels, petroleum fuels, for example, you know them, diesel and etc. When you use these fuels, they release these gases into the atmosphere. But when you use clean energy like biogas and also electricity, these are clean energy and they don't emit any harmful gases to the atmosphere. Those are some of the strict measures which you can take to control air pollution. Then we also discussed soil pollution, if you can remember. Anything you dispose of and then it finds its way to the soil, then it affects the living organisms in the soil. That is actually a pollutant of the soil. So we talked about quite a number. Solid waste, for example, petroleum products like oil spillage on land, a tanker transporting oil or petroleum or petrol itself. Then all of a sudden there is an accident. A lot of oil is spilled on the soil, on land. What will be the effect of that? Remember we talked about aeration, circulation of oxygen. Oil or these petroleum products, they tend to prevent circulation of oxygen. So if you have a lot of oil in the soil, then that will interfere with oxygen, will prevent oxygen from circulating in the soil. And then the effect of that, living organisms inside there are likely to die because of lack of oxygen. Yeah, that is oil. Then we also mentioned agrochemicals. Farmers use very many different kinds of chemicals in their farms. And this, even if the Sukuma-wiki is sprayed, then rain will fall and will wash those chemicals and they will finally drop onto the soil. This pollutes the soil. So these chemicals, they harmfully destroy or harmfully affect the organisms in the soil. Yeah, then we also mentioned radioactive waste. These are also pollutants of the soil. Radioactive waste, remember, gave examples of countries which use nuclear energy. So such nuclear power, bomb for example, if it happens anywhere, then we might have such particles, such radioactive particles in the soil. And that is a pollutant because it will be affecting the living organism. It can cause death to the organisms in the soil. And the effect of the radioactive particles are very serious and they can happen over very many years when they are still just happening. Yes, we have a lot of causes of soil pollution. Even solid waste, when we throw a lot of, just throwing papers, throwing just paper bags, plastics, broken glasses, just anywhere, then they end up polluting the soil. And when the soil is polluted, then the organisms living there are affected in one way or the other. Yes, and these wastes, for example, plastic, remember they are non-biodegradable. They are non-biodegradable. Why are they said to be non-biodegradable? A non-biodegradable waste is that which will stay in the soil, like it can stay forever or it can stay a very long period of time before it is broken down and then it disappears. That is said to be non-biodegradable. So if it is having a harmful effect, it will affect the organisms in the soil for a very long time. And that is why you even saw the NEMA through the government the paper bags were banned. Why were the paper bags being banned? Because they tend to be non-biodegradable. They stay in the soil for a very long time without being decomposed. So that is why they were banned. So they were replaced by these others, which I think they tend to be biodegradable. They don't stay that much. They disappear. They decompose after some time. Yes. Then you also mentioned the various ways we can use to control soil pollution. We mentioned farmers should use organic manures. Actually, this is the best way of controlling soil pollution. It is not very advisable to use this inorganic fertilizers. Instead, farmers should use organic manures. If you are having cattle, just collect the cow dungs, the remains of plants, leaves, etc. Heap them somewhere, then with the time they will form very good organic manure. Use them in planting instead of using inorganic fertilizers, because these have harmful effect in the soil. Then we also, another way is recycling. Recycle waste. If we could be recycling all plastics, then we will not have these plastics around. So we need a proper recycling of these solid waste. For example, plastics. This will prevent, will avoid people just throwing the bottles anyhow, anywhere. Because after sometimes they will go back to the factory, then they are used again to make new bottles. We are having that in Kenya, but I don't think it is very much effective because we still see a lot of plastic bottles being thrown away. So we need a proper recycling of this solid waste in order to avoid pollution of our environment. Yes, then we also talked about banning certain waste. If you can't recycle them, then it's better to ban them. For example, clothes, which you don't need, don't just throw them anywhere, but you put them somewhere, then you can ban them. That is a good way of protecting our environment. Then the petrol, instead of using tankers, should be transported using pipeline. Pipeline, I think, is somehow safer and better compared to the tankers, because the tankers can get accidents anytime. But if the pipe is in good condition, no leakage, then I think it is the best way to transport these oil or petroleum products. Then the government also needs to enact laws in order to also protect our environment. Yeah, then now our remaining one is water pollution, which I want us also to discuss. Water pollution. So when we talk about water pollution, that is just basically the release or the emission of these harmful substances into our water bodies. We have lakes, rivers, oceans, ponds, and etc. Those are water bodies. So if we release any substance which is going to harm organisms living in the water, or which is going to harm that, we cause pollution there. So I think we are the main cause of pollution of the water. Because today, for example, the human population is so huge. There is a lot of pressure on the environment, a lot of pressure. People want to build houses. There is a lot of stress on the environment. In town, for example, people are actually, a lot of people live in the town, you know that, and so there is stress. Stress is there on the facilities that we have. For example, the toilets, how we dispose our sewage, for example. We have a lot of sewage around, so you find that disposal becomes a way or the other, and into our water bodies. So when they end up into the water bodies, they cause pollution. So one major cause of water pollution is release of untreated sewage into the water bodies. And I've mentioned town. I think this one normally a lot of it comes from the urban areas or the town areas. Sewage, a lot of sewage gets into our water bodies from the towns or the urban areas. And this sewage tends to be untreated. And that is why it causes a lot of pollution in the water bodies. Untreated meaning it might be having certain chemicals. So when a lot of it gets into the water, then it affects the life in the water. Another one, which also might be a serious one, is use of agrochemicals. The farmers in their greenhouses or just in their farms, they use a lot of chemicals. These chemicals, when it rains, the rainwater will dissolve some of these chemicals. When rainwater dissolves the chemicals, they will run. We have what you call surface run. Surface run off. So the surface run off is likely to transport huge quantities of these farm chemicals into our rivers, lakes, and even oceans, and this end up causing pollution in those water bodies. Now, where we have, let me go back to sewage a little bit, where we have a lot of sewage and also a lot of these agrochemicals like fertilizers. If they are too much in the water, what is going to be the effect? Now, this is what is going to happen. Remember, sewage and fertilizer are nutrients. These are forms of nutrients. Sewage contains nutrients, a lot of it. Farm chemicals like nitrate fertilizers, they also contain nitrates. So nitrate is a nutrient to organisms, plants, for example. So where we have a lot of untreated sewage and other and fertilizers, they are likely to enrich. I'm talking about enriching the water with nutrients. So sewage and farm chemicals like fertilizers bring about enrichment of the water with nutrients. And what is the effect of this? What is the effect of this? Now, the effect of this is what we call eutrophication. Eutrophication. Now, eutrophication written like this. Eutrophication. This is T. So eutrophication is actually the enrichment of our waters with the nutrients, which result to what we call algal bloom. Algal. There will be a lot of algae growing or algae growing in or on the surface of the water. So the growth of algae on the surface of the water, covering the surface of the water. A lot of algae grow, and that is what we call algal bloom. Algal bloom. So we say algal bloom. You should just be asking yourself the effect of this. Now, the effect of algal bloom in the water is competition for oxygen. So long as we have algal bloom, remember this covers the water surface and they also use oxygen. So when they cover the water surface, the organisms below will suffer from lack of oxygen. So algal bloom normally leads to death of organisms such as fish because they don't get enough oxygen due to the competition of oxygen which is now brought about. Now, algal bloom results as a result of what we call enrichment of the water bodies with untreated sewage and farm fertilizers or the agrochemicals. So once we have algal bloom, there will be competition for oxygen, and then the organisms will start dying. For example, the fish will begin to die due to lack of oxygen in the water. Yes. Then we also have oil spillage. Oil spillage on the water, it sometimes can happen. We have certain areas where the pipe actually pass just below the water, the pipe which transports oil. So in case there is a spillage, there is a leakage, or there is we have some ships also that transport petroleum. So petroleum products. So in case of an accident, there will be a lot of spillage of oil on the water, and that will obviously lead to suffocation. The organisms will die due to lack of oxygen. Oil spreading and covering the water surface prevent oxygen from entering into the water, and the organisms below will now suffer due to lack of oxygen. They will try to compete for the little oxygen available. If that is finished, then they will start dying because they can't survive if they don't have oxygen. Yeah, so that is a cause of the water pollution. Then there is another one here. Soil erosion is also actually one of the causes of water pollution. Soil erosion. But how does soil erosion pollute the water? How do you think? I want to pose that question to somebody to answer. How do you think soil erosion brings about pollution of our water bodies? And let me ask who? Yes, Abdul, I think you can try that. How do you think soil erosion pollutes our water bodies? Abdul, if you can hear me. Abdul, it seems Abdul is not getting. Zubair, if you can hear me, I want you to explain how soil erosion can pollute our water bodies. Zubair? Zubair, are you there? Zubair seems not to hear me. Okay, now soil erosion is also a pollutant of our water bodies. Now, and this is how this happens. Consider a case where it is raining. So a lot of rain is probably going to cause a lot of surface runoff. Now, surface runoff, I said, is the water which runs on the surface of the ground when it rains. So this water is going to transport certain soil. It's going to erode actually a lot of soil, and then transport it into our water bodies. So a lot of soil ends up into the rivers, into the lakes, which is brought about. But if it is not surface runoff, then it can be even a river itself. As the river moves on the surface of land, the river is capable of causing a lot of erosion of the soil. So the river will transport all this soil into some large water bodies, for example, lakes. So the lake will end up being polluted with the soil. So even the color of the water will change. If the soil is red, then the water can turn reddish. The river can also get polluted if we have soil being brought in by surface runoff. These are water running just on the surface of land. Then this gets into the rivers. So the river will get polluted with soil, and that is actually pollution of the water. And so the effects, what are the effects of water pollution? I've mentioned some of the effects. For example, I've said oil spreading on the water surface will reduce oxygen in the water, oxygen circulation in the water, and this is having an effect. It will make the organisms die due to lack of oxygen. Oil has got another effect, and this is the effect. The oil, when it sticks, we have some birds which normally they are normally found in the water. They look for fish like the flamingos and etc. When a lot of oil comes into contact with the feathers of these birds, oil can clog. We use the word clog. Oil clogs. Oil clogs the bird, the feathers of birds. So it clogs the bird. Very difficult for this bird to fly. That is another effect of oil which you need to understand. Apart from preventing oxygen, it clogs the feathers of birds, making it difficult to fly, because the feathers will now become very, very, very heavy. Yes, that is very important. Oil can also block. Oil blocks. If you have some plants in that water, oil will block the stomata. You know, the gaseous exchange will be affected. So that is those are effects of oil when we have oil pollution. And then again, soil particles I also mentioned, but their effect. The soil particles can also block the stomata, or when they get into the respiratory surfaces of animals in that water, it can clog the respiratory surfaces, making it very difficult to carry out gaseous exchange. Then remember, I mentioned sewage and agrochemicals, which can cause eutrophication, which actually finally leads to death of the water animals due to lack of oxygen. And another effect, and this is now very much particular to the untreated sewage, it can cause diseases like cholera, typhoid, and etc. We know that these bacteria which cause these diseases, they like such unhygienic conditions. So when we have an hygienic condition like untreated sewage around, then you can have these diseases, cholera, typhoid, and these we know their effect. They are very bad kind of diseases. We will talk about them later on. Yeah. So how do we control? Seeing time is running up. How do we control water pollution? Some of these are just the same ones we talked about last time. And one of them, for example, the government can, we have enactment of laws. That is one. The government can dictate what kind of, for example, industries. The government can dictate what kind of substance you can release into our water bodies. And that is through law. So if you are found, for example, you are releasing hot water to the neighboring region, then we need to treat. We have treatment and proper disposal of sewage and other control of water pollution. When it's disposed, then it must be treated. That is very important. Then we also need a lot of caution during transportation of oil, and that is to reduce cases of accidents. That is a way of controlling water pollution. Biological control still comes, so we don't have to use stress yet. And use of organic manure is also very important. We don't need to use fertilizers, inorganic fertilizers, but we can use organic manure to prevent or to reduce water pollution. So that is the end of our lesson. I'm seeing I have like 2 minutes remaining. I will give that to anybody having a question. So we are through with, I hope you have the notes. So you make sure you copy the notes. Actually, you should finish the notes before our next lesson. I know you have a time to copy the notes. There is a time schedule for you to copy the notes. So make sure you copy all the notes on pollution before we meet next time. Any question?
Mr. Njoga, any student who is willing to ask a question will have to raise their hands visibly on camera so that I can at least give them the mic to speak. Thank you.
Okay. So if you have a question, just carry up your hand, then you'll be given a chance. Any question? Yes, Abdul Basi. Any question? Okay, I hope we are okay, all of us. So I think we can